Good afternoon. We are gathered here this Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, for a board work session. We're at the Stevenson Administration Building at 1616 Richland Street, Columbia, South Carolina, 29201. We're in room 102. Pursuant of the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, all persons, organizations, and media outlets as requested have been notified of the time, date, place, and agenda of this meeting. So I would like to call the meeting officially to order and have an adoption agenda.
Vice Chair, I don't believe we have a quorum.
Okay.
Oh, you see another person here? Okay, all right, now we got a quorum.
People walking up. Okay. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move that we adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Ayes have it and so ordered. There is no one here for the public session. And so we have with us the South Carolina School Board Association Legislative preview presentation will be presented by Ms. Debbie Elmore, and we welcome you here. And if there's anything that we need to get you or do, just let us know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. Do you want me to go, Madam? So I have been asked to kind of preview what we believe will be some of the issues. And of course, this is not the be-all, end-all list of issues. I think there will certainly be more. But these are the ones that we are actually following. Do you need some more of the material? Oh, sorry. That we actually are following. And here's some additional extra handouts here if you need those. Okay. We're following this coming January when lawmakers return to Columbia. Kind of what we're watching for. So the first issue let me just say, this is the second year of a 2-year session. So anything that does not pass that did not pass in 2025 is still on the table for 2026. But after 2026, then it starts a whole new session. So a lot of folks don't realize that we actually have 2-year sessions, if you will. So anything again left over is still in play. And what I've done, giving you each a handout, and I'm going to go over most of this. Obviously, I don't want to take too much time, so can't go over everything. But towards the back of the handout, there are some bills that have passed either this House or the Senate, and they've now are in the other chamber. And so those really do have more of a shot of getting some play. And so I've included those. Again, this is not the exhaustive list of those, but these are the ones that we are following, in our representation of school boards. So, and speaking of that, just want to say thank you for inviting me and for allowing the School Boards Association to be with you and to represent you. I especially, that's the part of my job that I really enjoy, is being able to represent elected officials who give of themselves like you do, your time, your energy, your experience, your wisdom, to making schools better in your district. So we do appreciate that. I want to say that. Okay, I'm going to launch in. Of course, the big issue is the funding issue. You may recall that at the end of the 2025 session, and this was after the House passed its version of the budget, of course, what happens is the State Department then began sending out school districts estimates of what their revenues are going to be based on what the House just passed. They do that again when the Senate passes, but we knew that what the House passed was going to be pretty much what the Senate passed. Well, when those notices went out, we began getting calls from school districts saying this can't be right. These estimates are much lower than what the teacher pay raise is going to be, and funding that. Really heard from rural districts. So So that then triggered, a kind of a study. Hey, how are you,
Hey,
Chairman?
I'm sorry, y'all.
No.
All right.
You want me to just keep going?
Yeah,
You're doing
yeah,
okay.
keep going.
So we began looking at it and working with the School Administrators Association. Began seeing, recognizing that this was, these estimates were kind of low, and then went back to see, okay, what happened in the year prior and in the year prior to that, right? Is this something phenomenal? Because the amounts that we've been receiving, it was a little bit lower this year. So maybe that had something to do with it. Anyways, a study was launched. And what we ended up seeing was that a high proportionate of the new funds, not the big pot of money, but what was being allocated by the General Assembly, was being given to, on a per pupil basis, much higher rate for a student who was in a charter school versus a student who was in a traditional public school. So again, this is the new money. And so what we saw, and I have a chart, but I don't have it with me, but there's a chart that shows per student how the money breaks down. So we just took just the new money. In year one, there was like $324 million new dollars being added to this new formula. And so when you looked at the numbers there, at that point, a charter school student was getting around $1,700, and a traditional public school student was getting around $850. The next year, I think it was $200 million. Again, a charter school student was getting 4 times the amount than what a traditional public school. Fast forward to this year, if it had, just passed as usual, we were looking at about 4 times the money. What we asked for, and again, remember, this budget had passed the House. It passed the House, was in the Senate, and was now coming back when all this was revealed. So we asked, could they lower the increase that they were going to give for the virtual charter schools? Leave everything but that and just lower that weighting. It would move some of the money to traditional public schools, not a whole lot. I'm just going to be honest with you in the scheme of things, but it was something. I think we asked for a 0.50. The General Assembly ultimately adopted 0.35, which is something. They at least recognize, if nothing else, they at least recognize there's an issue here. The second thing they did was to direct the Revenue Fiscal Affairs Office to go and look at this formula. Look at specifically the student weights. Many of you, like me, came up under the EFA, and there's assigned weightings for certain student groups like poverty, gifted and talented, career technology, and those types of things. So they directed the RFA to look at those weights, and they also directed them to come up with recommendations to take this formula and make it more consistent in terms of funding. Because that was the other issue that we found was that because of the way the funding formula is designed, there is a factor that is called a proportional element. And this is where my area, I will admit, it makes like a balloon. So if one factor is more elevated for this entity, the balloon gets shifted that way. You squeeze here and then it gets shifted here. So what was happening was charter schools are experiencing a lot of growth. We are actually losing students. Now, there are individual districts that are still growing students, but it didn't matter. They were getting less money because they are in that combination of public, traditional public, right? The other thing that was discovered was that in the proviso that directs the funding, charter schools were getting 2 times the weighting because they were getting a weighting for brick and mortar and they were getting that weighting for virtual charter. But then within the text of the proviso, it doesn't show it in that graph. You would think, oh, well, they're getting a 1.1 or whatever it is. No, there it says that they were going to be doubled because they were trying to make up the local funding that charter schools do not get, right? So that was also a big part of that. So the RFA came out with recommendations. They did come out, and in your handout, I have those recommendations for you. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I'm just going to go through the ones that we had advocated for, the changes that we had advocated for, if that's okay, because those were biggies. One thing that we advocated for was that we look at simplifying weights, because in this new formula, if a school district categorizes students incorrectly, or if another district over-categorizes, in this one, it impacts everybody. Under EFA, if you my district was not going to be determined by what your weights are, right? Now, because of the proportionality, everything's lumped in there. We're all affected. And so RFA in its report really highlighted that. They said that there were districts that didn't have any categories of students. They just had students, so they just got a 0.1. Well, that's not true, But if someone over categorizes, that also impacts us. So one of the things they did was they are going to combine those weights as limiting this proficiency. It's in this thing here. I can't remember them exactly, but it's 3 of them. They're going to combine them. They're going to basically combine it, roll it up, and so now instead of everybody getting a 1 point for every student you have, you're going to get a 1.1, right? And so it increases that weighting for that. It lessens weighting. They still are retaining the weighting for poverty, students of poverty. The other thing that we had asked for, which RFA recommends, I say recommends, let me say, they're saying an option would be, and this is the option we would really like to see, is that whatever the allocation amount is for charter schools, virtual and brick and mortar, take that out the pot. Take that out the pot and give it to them. And then determine all that other stuff with us, because that is the biggest component. Still give them their allocation. We're not saying we don't give them their allocation. We give them the allocation, but it doesn't get mixed in with that formula where they are now somewhat pitted, I guess, against the traditional public schools. That's what causes that volatility. That's the biggest factor. They did recommend that, so we're going to be advocating that come January for that issue, and also the weightings. And then I'm trying to remember here. It is. Here it is. The other thing they did was this career technology education weighting. They basically it's a 1.2 weighting. They basically recommend that 0.2 be taken out of that a separate line item in the budget be created using that 0.2 as equipment, because that is what is most costly. And when you try to give that 1.2 and dole it out that way, it gets so diffused that there are smaller districts that really don't have any money for equipment, right? Their weighting is enough to pay for that teacher, the shop teacher or whatever it is. So, and then give everybody the 0.10, all right? So those are really the big 2 recommendations that we are going to push for, because we believe those are the biggest components, if you will, that create that volatility. And making sure. The other big thing that they did, there's one other thing, is that they are going to now go back to, so for budget purposes, they're going to now base your funding on your last year's enrollment, what your total enrollment is in for the next year, just like EFA. That is so that you don't see, if you look at that RFA report, if you get it, if you look in the very back, there's a table. It shows by school district what was estimated in revenues that you were going to get versus what you actually got. And if you look at that, it is so enlightening. You will see every district except for 6 or 7 in red. They got less. So it is very difficult to budget on that. How can you budget
on that. That's why a lot of districts are experiencing dipping into their reserves, already cutting some programs, and so forth. So that is a huge change too. That way it does, and that was one of the factors, is making it more consistent, making it so that you could budget more effectively. So that component is in there as well. Right now, these are recommendations. They're going to lawmakers, and lawmakers have to implement these. So the specific lawmakers will be those who serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, because they have the budget first. So we shall see but be looking out for some alerts, some requests. You maybe call members to be advocating for at least some of these recommendations. So big major pieces in there to be implemented. So I'll be calling y'all for that. All right. The next, any questions? That's a whole lot. That is a whole lot. Any questions or anything?
Questions for anybody?
Okay, so, yes, no, okay, it's okay.
Debbie, I'll ask one then. So based on student weightings recommendations, you're recommending items 2 and 3, and then including the alignment and consistency, recommending number 3 for allocating.
Yes, you're right for those things. The other next thing is that we have asked for the RFA to run some simulation of numbers just to see, if you did implement these, what would that mean? I understand it's being done. I don't know that it's being done by RFA, but I understand there is a simulation being done by some folks, and that lawmakers are probably likely to want those numbers as well. Obviously, they want to see what's going on in their own district. So we will be looking for that, and hopefully we can get that. So just want to point that out. But in general, I guess we are very, very supportive of the recommendations because they do address a lot of the things that we had asked for. So, yeah. All right. So the other issue I wanted to bring up is the issue that we're going to be pushing for, which is nice to be pushing for something. And this isn't a new issue to you all. This is that issue of making it consistent for all elected officials to have the option to participate in the state health program. It is an option that is given to every elected official at the local and state level, with the exception of the soil and water the commissioner person, the people you vote for that you have no idea who they are. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I really don't know who. That they are. That person does not, but all other elected officials and at the state level as well. So I want to just make sure that you, I understand, we recognize that some board members, feel like, well, this isn't something that, they really think is important, but for a lot of other school board members it is. And I would like to describe them to you. So they are anywhere from 30 years old to 60. They range in age. Majority of them are self-employed. They own their own business, a lawyer, a hairdresser, a contractor, somebody who works in contract cleaning or something like that. So it is a lot of them. Yes, they have insurance, but if they have the option, they would like the state because it's a whole lot cheaper apparently than what they are paying on that marketplace. So, and this issue is about consistency. It's about consistency. If you're going to make this available to elected officials, we should make it available to all elected officials. So that's just one.
That includes,
Yes.
and that includes dependents also?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And retirees note that they can stay with their official or go with Medicare.
Thank you for pointing that out, Barbara. I appreciate that. So, and this is the reason why we pulled back on it. So we had, I think 2 years ago, we had this. It was going to be in a proviso, but then Peggy Boykin PIBA came to us with a real issue. And so we were like, well, we need to make sure, we need to study this. So what Barbara's talking about is if you are a state retiree,
Mhm.
you are a state retiree, you are getting Medicare. You're on Medicare, so you have to have that factor as well. You are getting your Medicare and you're using your state as a supplement, a secondary, right? According to PIBA, and this is something that every elected official, so it's not just school boards, it is every elected official, when they reach that point, because you have the option to participate as an active participant in the state plan, you now have a primary insurance. It's like you went back to work, right?
Mhm.
So Medicare views that as okay, we can leave. We can step back now. You can opt. So this is the way that it goes. You can opt to forego your Medicare for now, take the state health insurance, become active, and Medicare becomes your secondary. However, it is important to point out that Medicare doesn't act like a secondary in the traditional commercial sense. They don't really pick up other costs. So, and I know that is a concern. But if we're advocating consistency, that is also faced by members of the General Assembly, by city councils, by county councils, every elected official.
So can you opt out?
You can opt out, continue getting your Medicare, but you won't be able to get your state health insurance as secondary. That's what drops because Medicare views that as primary. And it took me forever to figure that out because we've had meetings with PIBA, we've had lawyers come in and talk to their lawyers, and it is Medicare rules. It's really boils down to what Medicare views this as. So that's an issue. We recognize that. We do. I mean, it is an issue, and we recognize that for sure. I know.
Because I came to you before.
You did,
Being
and you also came about that your statement, and you're taking out that statement, and you're not even putting anything.
I'm not putting anything.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, we asked about that too, and I'm gonna talk to you about that. But we did, because I had a lawmaker actually get people to answer that because it didn't make any sense either. So I'll talk to you about that. All right. So moving on. All right.
Question.
Yes. I'm sorry.
So you did say this has come before this body before to consider. What's different this time? What seems to be more promising about proposing this again? Because I'm looking at your survey that a large majority of board members said they will opt out in participating.
Right.
So I believe that 137 said they will opt in.
Right. Possibly. Yeah.
What do you all see, not just from inside of board members' thoughts and minds, but what about the ones that will make it law? What have you all seen change to bring it back?
Well, we pulled back.
Okay.
We were actually at a point where it's probably going to be in the budget.
Okay.
It was going to be a proviso on the budget. But we asked to just withdraw it because we needed to look at this issue. We needed to make sure that was correct and what we were hearing, and that's when we brought in all these lawyers. So, but I think that I'm not saying that we could get it again, but we're going to try. We're going to at least try to get this again to make it consistent. And again, this isn't the association. This is our members. Our members voted for this, right? They wanted this, so that's the pushing that. All right. Paid parental leave is another big issue for us. So there was a bill in the House last year that ended up passing the House. That bill only spoke to state employees. It kept only focused on expanding the current 6 weeks of parental leave to 12 and expanding the current co-parent parental leave from 2 weeks to 4. When the budget was on the House floor, the fiscal impact came out. And the fiscal impact only talked about state employees. But it wasn't until one of our contract lobbyists, who I appreciate every day, Daniel Bone, who was with the House of Ways and Means and who helped write this specific law, said, Debbie, I think that by automatic, it brings in teachers. And I was like, how? And he showed this one sentence within our section, because there is a state employee section and then school district employees. But within that school and district, there's one line that says that the benefits must be the same as what is offered to state employees. So that ties us together. So we didn't have time. We asked for it to be held up because we didn't have time. This is at the end of the session to find out from districts, what is this going to mean? How is this going to impact you? And so it passed, but it just kind of stopped in the Senate for now, just because we needed time. So they stopped it in the Senate. But basically, I was at a meeting of the Old English Consortium on Friday, which is Rock Hill, York, Lancaster, Kershaw, Chesterfield. There's a bunch of them. And when this came up, they were all very concerned. And it was Clover, the Clover School District. He got up and said they had 29 employees that took paid parental leave, the 6 weeks paid parental leave. It ended up costing them $1.5 million because teachers, staff do not just take 6 weeks. They're taking 9, 10, some 12 weeks now because they have built up annual leave or sick leave. I will say that under the state employee one, they cannot combine sick leave or annual leave with their paid parental leave unless they're sick. They have actually, they have a doctor's note. But in school districts, most of the leaves in school districts are very lenient. You can use your annual leave, you can use sick leave, you can combine that. So it ends up extending it, and that's where that costs come in for districts, is that they take more, which, nobody, and let me just say, nobody is against parental leave, right? I mean, it is a positive thing to have parental leave. It's just different, though, in a school district where you have people on 190-day contracts. If you play out just 12 weeks and you consider that, it'll probably extend more to 15, possibly 16, that is an entire half of a school year. That's an entire, plot that on a school year calendar. That's a half a school year. So in addition to the cost, it's really about instruction and how you are going to handle that, of getting a teacher for a half of a year, and you're going to want a certified teacher because they're going to be in there so long that those kinds of issues we have to think about. So we're just asking the senators to consider just the impact to districts, right? And how this works in a school versus it works in somebody who works year-round, right? So that's just a concern, and I'm just pointing this out because we're going to have to be watching this. I know that the districts in the Old English, they were for some reason, they have a lot of young teachers, so it really impacts them. But we are not against paid parental leave. Let me just state, we are not against paid parental leave. Gilda Cobb-Hunter said, Deb, I know you are not up here arguing this. I said, I am not arguing against parental leave, but you got to understand what it means. Just want you to be aware. But she does. She was aware. All right. Again, these are just some bills in your handout there that are still in play. I think I wanted to point out one other. I'm not going to read the handout to you, but just a couple of them. One of which, again, has implications for y'all, is the House bill that passed that would expand the types of activities that charter school students, homeschool students, and governor school students can participate in. Currently, homeschool students and some private school students even can participate in interscholastic activities like sports, if, whatever, those kinds of things. But they're expanding it to say, okay, it needs to be band, ROTC, art, music, all kinds of programs that aren't in law now. It also expands to career technology. Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. This is in the back. It's one of the bills.
Yeah.
Y'all, I apologize. I'm on this like allergy thing. It just dries me out. I'm so sorry. So it does, let me just say this, it does not mean that if you do not have the capacity, right, you don't have to make room. But it also says that the state for the students, you can count them in your ADM partially. So there would be some funds that would technically go back to you, but it's like based on it's prorated at the time that they spend. So if they take a career technology education course, I don't know how you do it for music or band because they go to everything. They spend hours. So that one, again, passed the House. It is now in the Senate. We will have to see what the Senate, does with that. But that one I wanted to draw your attention to. And these other ones, we're likely to see some sort of immunization bill. I mean, they've been, I think 400 bills have been filed throughout most every state in the country. So, we just put that out there. That's likely going to be an issue. We did see last year there was a bill that really the main intent was to prohibit the mandatory use of what they call I forgot what the term was, but it was like COVID shots. It was COVID, mRNA, whatever vaccines, those types of things. But what happened was as that thing was going through subcommittee, I realized because it was so technical, could this apply to the school vaccines? And so there was a belief that, yeah, it could. So we got it amended so that it specifically states not the immunizations that are already in a vaccine schedule. So it did not, include that. But we shall see. We'll see what they do. But that's really, I could go on more. I think, again, this isn't the exhausted list. I think we likely will see some charter school legislation next year. We'll probably see, I'm just trying to think what that issue was. It just, yes, yeah. Yes, yeah. There was an outbreak there in a school election. Yeah, yeah. I think what we would ask for on something like that is that if there's going to be an expansion to that opt-out provision, that school districts have the ability to do something. I don't know what that would be, but to do something and have some flexibility with that. Or if a school district, or maybe a school district could opt in on that. I don't know.
But then again, that depends on the parents.
Right. That's right. It does. It does.
And so if your child comes to band and you're homeschooling, but they don't believe in the shots, you have to
So good.
And it's studying this issue. I didn't realize, but our Department of Health, which was DHEC at one time, they actually collect that data. They do collect the data of the children and by school. And you can look and you will see some schools that are like 40%.
Mm-hmm.
They're small and they're, but they are, yeah, I didn't realize that, but they do have that data. It's interesting.
By the way, thank you all for your patience. I worked very hard to get here on time and did not quite make it. Somebody was driving real slow in front of me,
I
from the
just
courthouse to here. What other questions do folks have for Ms. Ellen?
So you mentioned a minute ago, one of the bills that might be coming up, well, there should be coming up, on with charter schools. What about charter schools? Are you saying
Well,
about the monies, the dollars going towards charter schools?
no, there is a charter school accountability reform act that passed the Senate, and it's now in the House, and so I suspect that the House will take that up. In what form it comes out, I have no idea, but I mean, I would think. I tell you though, the issue of I don't know if you saw where the Ethics Commission ruled for Erskine charter with Erskine. So that's a private college, right? Well, the college formed an separate authorizing entity. And the question was, is that entity have to adhere to Freedom of Information Act? And the Ethics Commission said no, because there's nothing specifically stated in the law and the statutes. So you have public money going through this entity that has
accountability.
not subject to that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that question is probably gonna, that's gonna be asked for sure, so, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, so each year at Debbie, we have legislative, platform that we do. So typically, we do 5 or 4 issues. So one of the issues we have for 2025 was that, recently one opposed to take over school districts and locally raise revenues and opposes legislative efforts to remove, diminish, or interfere with the authority of local government school districts. Any movement on that law from last year or years past regarding schools take over?
I think it's a done, yeah, I mean, it's in statute. It's in statute.
No problem. We also support allocating state funding for expanding broadband statewide. Any movement on that?
So if you look at the map by the Department of Administration, they have an agency dedicated just to broadband expansion, and they have a map there, and it shows that most of the areas have access. Doesn't mean they have it. They have access to it. Some areas better than others. Like my street is the worst. I'm in Sumter, so we have access to it. We have it, but yes, I think the state has invested a lot of resources to that effort. I think they've done a phenomenal job in getting more to more areas. Now, are we 100%? No, but I think we did in our last year at our delegate assembly.
Right.
We recommend that be deleted just because it's there.
Yeah.
And the delegates approved that, deleting that one. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Because that came about after COVID.
It did.
Community.
It did.
They have it's sitting up here in 2003. Some of those areas didn't have some of the streets that couldn't get internet.
Right.
Also, so
Well, we got a lot of infusion of federal dollars too, thanks to
thanks to
Congress.
that.
Yes.
So the other thing was, we opposed legislation that required 3rd graders to be retained based on the score on the state test. Any movement on that?
What was that one again?
We're still one opposes legislation that will require 3rd graders to be retained based on the score on the state test.
That's part of the,
It's
part of the read to succeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that changed last year,
Right, right.
So I don't know if that was there any movement towards that? Is there anything that
Well, I think they've retained that provision. However, the General Assembly did expand the summer reading camps that are very successful to lower grades.
Correct.
And they've actually put more money in that to make sure we do, because they realize to increase that. And I think that you probably could speak more to that than me. So they have done some efforts to that.
Okay, so we may keep that one. All right, next question. The other one is that we believe the General Assembly's state education new funding structure should be designed to fully fund public education in South Carolina, to include expanding local district revenue raising options and ensure districts are held harmless from receiving less money than the new funding plan. So basically, we
good.
talked about that. So
Yes, yes. Oh, and that's the other part of the recommendations. Thank you. Is hold harmless, updating the hold harmless.
Yes.
Because if you're going to make a change in that formula, that they need to update the hold harmless.
2021, 2022, so we're back in.
Yes, it is. That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Then finally, Richland believes local school boards should establish a school calendar, including the start date without limitations from the state government. Now, we've been able to do that,
Modified.
but I think it's still an ask of the State Department for a modified calendar.
Right.
I think everybody's gotten away from that third Monday
Mhm.
to start schools.
Majority of
But
them,
that's
yes.
not codified in law.
No.
It may still codify in law that you must start on the third Monday.
Well, I mean, it's kind of codified in that, in the innovation, it's the innovation schools legislation that passed. That one says you can, you can apply for flexibility if it's,
And they were pretty flexible, so.
Yeah.
No issues, so we're good. Okay. Those were the 5 key issues that last year, we talked to our legislators that would affect Richland one. And then we got some other things too, but I won't go to those, but I just wanted to.
and just a recommendation, I think even though, if you still support that,
Yes.
I think I would leave it in there just because I'm hearing rumblings. People are not happy that a majority of the districts are not starting by that date, and I foresee maybe start back up of this group, some chamber groups, so.
But I think one of the things that's been hard is there's no consistency and it's changing
Yeah.
year to year, so people are like,
When you,
I don't plan 2 years out anymore, but for people that do, or that,
Right.
it's just like each summer is different than the summer before, and that is hard. So I think it's probably starting to level out a little bit more in the last year or two.
yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
districts are kind of where they generally want to be, but I can see why people have felt a little bit frustrated as we've kind of
Employees.
changed it gradually.
yeah, yeah.
So tort law, I know it's a big issue several years ago. No movement on, nothing like that's coming through now. I think we're good with tort where we are.
Well,
Reform.
specifically what?
So Richland does not support increases to the Tort Claims Act without research-based data to ensure changes in the cap will not impact the financial status of the school district.
So, the Senate did pass some tort reform. They combined it, remember, with the issue of the bars and the liquor license and all that, and they were running them out of business and all that. So they combined that provision with tort reform, and they did increase the caps, which we supported. We supported it because those caps have been in place for forever, and yeah, I think it was. I just wrote this yesterday. I don't. Yeah, it did. Is Senate bill? Whatever. Okay, I'll get that to you, Jamie. I can get that. The House passed. It was just theirs was just strictly about the liquor and the beer. It didn't have any of what the Senate has. So, but the House does have a tort reform ad hoc committee studying it. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, 306.
Yes, yes. Our concern was with how they defined occurrence.
Yeah.
And so occurrences, that really would have made it go. But occurrence, they kept what it is now, somewhat. They changed a little, but basically somewhat. So our insurance trust folks said, well, that's fine. And so did the counties and the cities. They were fine with that as well. As long as occurrence wasn't,
Right.
because the damage, some, yeah.
All right, early childhood. We believe that early childhood development programs for 4-year-olds are essential for overall academic process progress in the state. The General Assembly should enact legislation to provide full funding to ensure that all 4-year-olds in South Carolina have the ability to participate in full-day accredited child development program. The issue with that, I think, used to be
Some districts don't.
some districts didn't do full day.
Right,
We do full day. We're fine because we have everybody else.
right.
There hasn't been any movement to go to 3. Now we do 3K2, but there's been any movement to do 3K, 3-year-olds
No.
at this point. Okay, all right, Mr. Chairman, I think that it's on my charter schools, of course, we don't believe in vouchers, public, money's going to private vouchers. That's always going to believe. Public tax dollars should not be used to support non-public schools through vouchers, tax credits, or other methods if state dollars are used for such purposes. And that all non-public schools should be subject to all tests, state testing and accountability requirements of the public schools. I think we still have that. That's a good part. All right, I think that takes care of my questions. There is gonna be a potential, I wanna talk to you about first, act that may come before the General Assembly, basically, it's dealing with student discipline, policies. But I'll show you review offline. Let's take a look at first, because it's part of SCA and
I got it.
PGSA.
I've been working with them on that. Yeah.
I'm concerned about one of those.
Yeah.
The appeal process.
Okay.
Basically skipping the principal, teaching, go on the principal to the district office to appeal the decision
Okay.
of the principal.
Okay. I don't remember. I might have maybe didn't see that version then.
Well, basically, it says that if a principal denies a teacher's request for student removal or prematurely readmits a student, the educator may appeal the decision in accordance with district level policy.
Okay.
And the districts must establish a formal appeals process for such cases. So it's like, basically, if I'm the teacher, I don't like this role that, I said, as a principal, I gotta bring, district back to my class. I can then go him to the district level to appeal that decision. I don't know, I'm a little leery on that. I'm
Right.
concerned.
Okay. Okay.
I just need more conversation.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
we have more conversation.
Yeah.
But that's it for me. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions from other board members? Bill Scheer?
I know.
Um,
I know. And,
Yeah,
Commissioner Bishop?
any update on, well, it's a broad question, but we got a lot of unfunded mandates over the years. Are they going to look to provide any funding for any of those unfunded mandates? Okay, that gives a great answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I am saying that, Jess. I think, we can always advocate. We need to always advocate for sure. For sure. And remember, under our new formula, they rolled up all those line items they had at one time where they were funding specific things, and they roll it out and putting it through that formula. So that money goes out differently, and I'm sure a lot of districts are funding programs. Now, with that roll up and the new formula, that the wording in the proviso is now each district has full flexibility to use their funds in a way that they feel best meets the needs of their students, right? So you can still, do now. School business officials tell me, well, I'm still required to report these things. So, and I said, well, that's the first time I've heard that. So we need to go to the General Assembly and say, well, if you're given full flexibility, then you shouldn't require that reporting. Then, well, we'll see. We'll see.
What is the earliest, because Commissioner Bishop raised a good point, I mean, the unfunded mandates are sometimes frustrating because many of them are well-intentioned and they're about things that everyone supports.
Yeah.
Right.
But they add up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think a lot of the folks realize once you begin adding them up, what it looks like at a district level sometimes. When's the earliest that we can begin getting wind and planning for, one, to look at our own district and say, if this is enacted, this is how it'll affect, one, so we can tell the story, but two, so we can plan for it. What, I mean, and I realize you don't get to control the legislative calendar, but I mean, are you already starting to see things, any pre-filed things or talk of issues that we need to be discussing in January, February? Because what I don't like is when we come in July on our third reading and we feel like, I mean, I know we have to wait until the final budget, I get that, the proviso and everything, but to the extent we can plan a little bit better for it, I think it helps us to explain how that's gonna impact us, but if it is gonna impact us, to mitigate it. What's the earliest we can look at?
I think just the way that it's been going in the last couple of years, I think that when that House budget is done, I think that's pretty much, there may be some changes by the Senate, but what I've seen is they pretty much take what's been passed out of the House. So that would be early March. I mean, that's going to be early March. And if they enact the changes, especially budgeting on that 135th day enrollment rather than projected, that's going to help. Because even if you lose students in next fall, you still have some cushion there to plan for that, because now you just got way less than what you thought, and budgets have now just been shot for a majority of school districts in the last 2-3 years. Yeah, even this year, I'm sure you're going to see. I'm hearing that so Ellen Weaver, state superintendent, is requesting $137 million, and she wants to raise the starting pay to $50,500. And when we went back to look, okay, is that allocation going to be enough? And at one time we could say, yeah, it would cover that. But when you put it on that formula, then, and that's what happened for 3 years. The first call I got was from Hampton that first year saying, Debbie, they're estimating I'm getting 400-something thousand in revenue. But the cost to implement at that time, it was like $4,500. It was big increase that first year out. It was going to cost her almost $2 million. That shows right there. And then plus you could just gauge the news clippings year to year. And like the second year, I'm seeing Lexington 1 dipping into reserves. I'm seeing this one cut. And this one using this or cutting this program or not implementing something they'd planned. And so, you could just see it, and so you knew something was up, right? So, yeah.
We've mostly stayed out of that because we've been above it each summer in the past.
Right.
But the problem it creates as that goes up, it compresses the salaries above it.
It
so you really
does.
didn't have to start increasing those on your step. So it's not just that 1 year. I mean, luckily, like I said, we've been able to avoid that compression because we've kind of kept ahead of it. I think that's an incentive to stay ahead of it.
Right.
At some point, you're going to get caught, and then it's a bigger chunk at one time.
And that was brought up Friday too by a superintendent that we focused, great that we focused on the recruitment part, but we've got to look at the retention part. So that's true.
Right.
That is true.
Any other questions? Commissioner Cutter?
So I think I remember hearing something. I don't think it was specific to Richland County, but it was a county in South Carolina that there was a request, and I thought it came from the state level, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, about a change or to make some revisions regarding history teachings or, oh gosh, I don't know.
Social studies standards. I think the social studies standards are getting ready to be redone, but that's part of the cyclical review. I mean, they look at standards every 5 to 7 years. They are, history's obviously part of that.
Yeah.
So I know that, I mean, that's about all
I
I know.
wish I could remember specifically what it was, but it was something, to me, it was alarming because it was more of a fundamental change, something.
To the DES though?
It wasn't DEI.
Take African American history out of school?
It was, I thought it was relative to African American history, not taking it out of school, but just making some revisions that to me did not seem accurate.
Right.
The curriculum.
Yeah, it was
A
something with the,
specific curriculum.
yeah. And I cannot remember exactly what it was. Maybe I could do some research and let you know, but I just wanted to know if you knew of anything specifically, a curriculum change or something that they were recommending with either Black history, American history that would kind of.
I think there was some discussion out in the community about, was there the possibility that a specific curriculum would be mandated by the state that would do some of those things, have some revisions in it that were not acceptable.
Oh, you
And-
mean like the classical?
I guess, I'm not sure, I'm kind of vague, I was just kind of,
I know what you're talking about, I see it, yeah. It's a classical curriculum versus what we have now, I don't know what you call it, but there's a term for it.
yeah.
I do not know.
But yeah.
But as it stands now, the state sets standards, but we still choose within some parameters.
Right,
right,
what
right.
curriculum.
Right.
Which needs
That's
to
right,
be-
that's
stay that
right.
way.
Yes. Yeah.
Just a minute.
Um,
Oh, it is optional, under what we would be, it is, it would be optional.
But it's an optional for volunteer. And then the different for me, or it has to be the entire thing.
Well, it is different for you because you have those qualifications and because just by the very nature of it being an option, Medicare views that as, oh, you got insurance, we can get out now. And yeah, that's what the issue is. So yes, you could opt out and you could say,
Is it
no, I
opt
still,
out per individual or per board?
for individual,
Individual.
for individual, yes. Just like it is now for county councils,
County,
you know, all the other general members of the
It
general
just
assembly.
stated here, the school board members are the only elected officials who do not have the option of participating in the.
Right now. Right.
So they would be included.
Right,
right.
right.
But I wanted to make sure under those, because it says that, they have the option to participate in the program and other local and state officials. So I want to make sure that we can opt out, not as a district.
Right.
as a-
No, is it in, yes, yes.
Because the
yes,
retirees are, that's the biggest
That's-
issue
that's-
for us, what's gonna happen with that, because
You're not gonna let us young people mess up the old people.
let's don't, we'd rather you
Mhm,
not.
for sure.
Okay.
Let me ask this, Mayor. So some time ago, and we haven't done it recently, it used to be that if you brought a gun to school, automatic 365 days.
365.
Oh, yeah,
Is
it's
that
in
still-
there.
oh, you got it?
Yeah, that passed the Senate. They amended
That's
that.
federal law, right? Isn't that federal law?
Well, there's some nuances there.
Okay.
Hmm.
So the state is making some changes, potential changes to that. But
Right.
it also allows, like we work with the student to
Mhm.
continue their education.
Yes,
in
oh,
some type of
yes,
educational setting,
yes,
whether
it
it's virtual,
does.
whether it's,
Whatever it is.
Yes.
school or whatever.
Yeah, you're to another school, like within the district. That's another, that, this bill would allow you, well, but you have to talk to the principal,
Right.
the receiving
Yeah.
principal, and everybody has to be agreed on that. But yes,
Yes.
It's
The-
the Senate Bill 416 on page 6.
Mhm.
It looks like it just gives us a little more flexibility to address case by case.
yes,
And we've done that in the past.
Yes.
So this is opens up.
yes. It does, I will say, it adds a new element in that there's it's almost like a standard that has to be, that the student has to knowingly
Right.
have bought, and you know, well, and that can happen, right?
Right. Well, we
Um,
had one where a student, literally, in that happened, and the parent just left it in that particular bag.
right, right.
And the student
Right.
took it.
But students are old enough to go to the
Turn it
turn it in.
Right,
And
right.
by law, we have to suspend them for 3 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. Well,
This
Give you
this
some
was,
leeway.
right, right.
That's good.
And
That's good.
especially with virtual, I mean, one of the things that we learned from COVID is the virtual options are so much more expanded now. And so I know
Yeah.
we've tried to do our best.
I think it's
It was not a right fit for the kid to come back for any reason, for some reason. To at least still provide, because it's not helping any of us.
No,
For a kid just to
agreed.
be
Just
expelled
to
from
be out.
public school in the entire state for a year. I
Right.
don't know who thinks the kid comes back from that better than
Right,
when they started.
right.
So I think it's good that this would help us have some flexibility too.
Right, right. Well, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's good
All right, any other questions? Well, Ms. Elmore, as always,
Thank
it's
you.
good to see you.
Good to
It's been a
see
little
you.
while. Thank you for
Yes.
being here. And I think with that being said, and without objection, we will stand adjourned.